about to get started. We're back. We're back once again.
What's up,
No pressure, no diamonds. It's Alex Rose here. We got my boy
Thomas Solano, and yeah, man, we're in the building, which is nice. Right?
We are back, man, and we have a special treat, man. Special treat. The first is so amazing. This is gonna be our first guest on the show,
right?
And no better to start it off with Miss Nelly Johnson. Great, an amazing speaker. I'm actually a licensed therapist, a family coach, relationship coach. I'm gonna need some of that coaching today to be real with you. I'm gonna ask some questions for myself. But Ms. Nelly Johnson, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. I'm your first guest. I just feel really honored, and I just want to say just thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate you for being on, and so excited to have you on, and and I've been kind of looking at definitely like your social media for quite a while now. And looking at just some of your amazing content. And what I've seen is just, you're just really just willing to give free game on relationships, right? And then help people out and help people move forward, especially going through like this pandemic and everything. It's been real difficult for a lot of people. But
Right.
Before we kind of start getting into some like details on anything, I really kind of just want to, for the listeners and things like that. So kind of tell the folks your background, where you're from, what, how you got into what you're doing. Tell everybody a little bit about your background.
Okay, thank you. My name is Nelly Johnson, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about, and I think that's what has been like the force behind just the career that I chose is people. I really have a genuine love for people, and I am a very outgoing. I love to be around people. Being alone it's not for me, and I've always kind of been this person. But when I was a teenager, so my mom, and I just did a story about this because yesterday was a day where we honor women, and it all starts to my mother. I got smuggled into this country, and I mean smuggled, and at the age of 8. And so there was a lot of barriers that you have to overcome just being from another country. I'm a first generation college attendee. So that came with its own barriers, but just being able to come and have, my mother do that, to pay a complete stranger. Sometimes I reflect on that, and that just fuels my desire to just reach that next level of success. For me, just the fact that she paid a complete stranger money to smuggle us across this country was just amazing. But she would be fearless because I would be like, no. But so I ended up in foster care, and I'm very open about it now. There was a time, guys, I want to tell you that I was very embarrassed. There was a lot of shame surrounded around with the circumstances. And I am very open in different social platforms how I ended up there. And I had an amazing therapist that I worked with, and she really changed the trajectory of my life. And that was really where I think like I've told you this before, that this field chose me. I didn't choose it. And I just knew that I wanted to help people like she had helped me. So that's kind of where that started. And then so now I've done private practice through Kaiser. On the side, that's where I developed just life coaching. We realized just how important it is sometimes to have that person to mentor, unpack some of the stuff that we as just regular people go through. We think sometimes we're so different, right? We think that, oh, you're from a different maybe race, ethnicity, social background. And honestly, we deal with a lot of the same issues as people. We're humans, and we deal with a lot of the same issues. And I love that because that unites us. Believe it or not, once you know that you're not the only one dealing with something, it makes you feel better. You're like, oh, okay. I also have a teenager that's, doing this or that. It just, for some reason, it makes you feel like you're just not alone.
That's awesome. Nelly, so is it safe to say that trauma, and it sounds like there's an echo, maybe I'm talking too loud. That trauma kind of led you towards your calling and your blessing. And I mean, you would call it a blessing, I'm assuming. Is that fair to say? The trauma of like
Thomas, let me
foster
just
care
tell
and
you that, Thomas, let me just tell you that as you asked that question, it resonates with me because it absolutely did, but it took me years, Thomas, to really get to that land of milk and honey, that sweet spot where I really saw it as what you just called it, a blessing. And it at that moment and at that time, there was a lot of anger and resentment. And sometimes that as humans, we go through something and we're angry that we went through that, right? Such as even my divorce. I went through a divorce, and that's a whole nother story, but it was that really pushed me and to dive into this deeper into this field of marriage. I'm really passionate about marriage and how we can keep our marriages alive. So yes, it was that trauma and some of the most horrific experiences that I've been through. And I've just also learned that with people, that it is those experiences that really shape us and put us on the path that we were always supposed to be on.
Mm. Jeez,
that's
man.
powerful.
Yeah, that's man, boy, it's about to get real here today.
Well,
man.
it's confirmation because we've always heard we have an incredible mentor, in our firm and stuff, and he's always, he shares some personal stories and stuff, but he came to a realization, kind of like you called it the land of milk and honey, but what he says is in every adversity, there's a seed of equal or greater blessings. And everything happens for you and not to you. And the first time I heard that, where everything happens for you and not to you, it just really resonated because it actually puts you in a position of gratitude, or at least searching for gratitude, right? Like optimism and things like that. And I think we need a lot more of that, which is why I think what you're doing, Nelly, is so special. I mean, personally, just the service aspect, the willingness to go out and put out, this incredible content and stuff that you do just to help people and be of service. And you said it right. Like, I just love people. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
huge. Man. Yeah, that's huge. And and like you said, the seed of a greater benefit, if and only if you look for it. Right. It's huge. So that's a big deal, man. Appreciate
Well,
that.
one of the biggest, I think, themes in this is that you'll have two people that have been through the exact same thing, like maybe childhood trauma or life experiences, and one will turn it around, like Thomas just said, and the other one won't. So what is it? It's how they interpret that information. So what I do with a client is I help them, yes, unpack whatever negative experience it is. And let's use getting fired. I have a client that I'm working with. He got fired and he's just angry at the world and everything else. So we're trying to, unpack that, peel back the layers of maybe this is what needed to happen for him to really jump into that. He's always wanted to be an entrepreneur and he just needed that push. And so that's why this is so powerful, because it's just having someone else to assist along this way of life, this journey.
Nelly, if you don't mind me asking, and I'm just curious from your perspective as a therapist, is anger, you think, a byproduct, like a secondary emotion to maybe let's say like fear or or those types of things? So would you say that most people end up angry because it's, again, a secondary emotion to something like fear or uncertainty or those types of things? And it's I mean, I don't know if I'm articulating that correctly or asking, but what would you say is that, like, because most people don't just go automatically to anger, right?
Actually, anger is a secondary emotion, and that's the easiest emotion to go to. So I think anger is like eating a cheeseburger when you're hungry. It's fast, you get it. And so anger is that easy emotion that is really easy to pick up. But let's peel off anger, and then we have frustration, disappointment, fear. There's a gamut of emotions that you could be feeling, and it's coming out as anger. So I used to work at Tarzana Treatment Center, and everyone knows that that's just an agency for people that are just with different substance abuses, and for individuals that are coming out of jail and prison. And one of the classes that I used to teach there was anger management. And you would be surprised just if you take the time to just breathe. And part of the treatment and the healing to anger is just that. Just if you could just breathe, the power of breathing, we overlook it because I am breathing. That's not breathing. That is, it's really, we have to really slow down our central nervous system and identify, what are you really feeling? So are you, now that this person got fired, now there's fear, maybe I won't make it off the unemployment. Maybe I'm going to lose my home. And now I've lost the respect of my family. There's a list of fear, disappointment, and most common, I just think, is hurt. So a lot of people, when they have been hurt, instead of being vulnerable and saying, what you did really hurt me, we respond with anger. So with people that have an anger management problem, that they're their court order, I just explain to them, I don't want you to get rid of anger. Anger is a great emotion, just like anything, just like love, happiness. I just want you to let it manifest itself out in a different way, because anger is a signal to us that something is not right here. Nope, this doesn't feel good. Something is off. It's like your alarm in your head. So we don't want to mute that. We just want to be able to release that in a different way. So unlearn and learn new ways.
That's so. So when you said anger is a great emotion, you mean like potentially, obviously, right? Depending on how you channel it. But
Right.
I think like equally, you would say, or is it safe to say that you would agree, like fear and all of those emotions, depending on how you internalize and channel those, could be also incredible tools, from anything from achievement to strengthening relationships and things like that. Is that something that you would say is pretty accurate?
Right, because if you don't have, sometimes there is one emotion for you that might trigger your motivation to go to school. So I'll give you a quick example. I was a teen mom, and one of my aunts told my mother, she'll never be nothing. Now, look what she's good for, just popping out kids, all in Spanish. And I remember being in the next room and I heard it, and it just made me angry. But that anger is what I was like, okay, I'm going to show you what I can do. And it just, so that's why I don't want to completely say that anger is all bad. It's just how we channel. That's a great word, how we channel and how we kind of let that anger come out. I was motivated. To go to school. I registered for school. I wasn't even in school at the time. I had my high school diploma, and that's it. So that's what I try to explain to the clients, because a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to be angry anymore. Well, we're human, so you're going to be angry. We just have to channel it different. Someone cuts you off and you're pissed off and they give you the bird, you're not going to get out and, take out the bat that's in your trunk and go, no, you're just gonna, let it go. So
wait, that's not what you're supposed to do? You're not supposed to bash the windshield? Man,
No,
I've been handling this all wrong. I thought I was doing a great thing by keeping the glass companies in business and like windshield. Nah, I'm kidding.
Man, you gotta go to like you say, in Texas, you got a gun in the back window of the car, man. Ain't nobody gonna cut you off.
Well, you see that all the time. There's road rage and how it's progressed from a simple, you cut someone off.
Yeah.
Someone cut you off.
Gosh. I was just watching it. I think I just watched. Sometimes you get on this YouTube, man, and it is a brutal, just downfall of video after video. And I was watching something inspirational, and somehow I ended up on some road rage video. And it literally is something that escalates from, it's just a thread. It's literally a thread. Like, okay, somebody, gets this close to your car, but they don't hit you, so you're both alive, right? But most people don't see the fact that, oh, good thing we're both alive. Whew, that was close. They see, oh, no. I need to let them know what they did wrong, and they need to know and they need to know why I feel a certain way. And as you're saying that, it's just like it snowballs, and all like very terrible, very final things have become very final based on an emotional reaction. And like you said, channeling those emotions, using that energy properly is huge.
Well, I think, yeah, and Nelly can dive a little deeper into this, but I'm curious, and I know for me, because I tend to when I do get angry, it's usually due to frustration of other people's what I would consider bad habits, right? Like, so like specifically in the example of driving, like if you don't drive fast enough for what I think you should be driving, like, and that's just your habit, right? Like your safety is your habit. I'm like, get out of my way, right? Like the Ludacris song, like move, get out the way. But it's funny because I think, and again, I'm speaking for myself, but it's usually due to pent up emotions that haven't been communicated, and usually with loved ones, because that's who I spend the most of my time with. You know what I mean? Like family and friends and stuff. And there's a lot of times where I tend to bite my tongue, and Nelly can probably, tell me like, hey, that's not accurate. You should have some healthy communication. But usually it's easier for me, and I think it's easier for most people to express and get that pent up emotion externally, like outside of their bubble, which is why we see road rage over the years escalate from like just flipping the bird or whatever to like wanting to catch up and then cut them off and almost cause an accident to like pulling guns out on people. Like I think a lot of that, and Nelly, again, if you can dive a little bit deeper into this, is due to the lack of people communicating those frustrations in a healthy way when they're supposed to at the time that those feelings are created.
Well, that's just, do you guys know the term, where the term going postal, do you know the birth of that term?
The post office?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was the post office, but
It is. So the story, and just so you know, that was birthed. This man was working at a post office, and he had been overlooked for, a promotion, a raise, just different situations that he had asked for time off. And so one day he had enough and came in there with guns and just had a spree, and just, it was like a mass murder type event. Had he said and verbalized, hey, what is going on here? It seems to me like other people are getting a provocation and not me, or it seems to me like I'm the next qualifying person for this promotion. So I say, and this is going to take a sound, so I hope you guys can hear, like if something happens, don't swallow it. Someone says something, let's say your wife says, husband and wives, maybe they'll say something about your weight or about you didn't do nothing. And instead of you swallowing it, you say, babe, when you say things like that, you really, like, low key, you hurt my feelings. Say it in a way that's how you would say it. But I don't believe in letting every little thing go, because then one day you've let every little thing go, and now you're pissed off at everyone. And it's really the fact that your wife or husband has been making comments that are hurtful. Just say it in a way that's like, hey, that's kind of mean, and it hurts my feelings. Be vulnerable and say it, even with kids, especially in a family unit.
Yeah. Me personally, I don't know if I have a problem with being vulnerable. But I think, maybe I do as a man. And that was kind of the point I was trying to take. So I'm curious, like your take on men and the lack of vulnerability. Like where does that come from? I know in our culture, I'm Hispanic, and I think you are as well. In our culture, it's very like, hey, you don't show emotion, man up. Like, yeah, hey, bro, we're all a little bit of everything, huh? But specifically, like I remember my dad, like, man, hey, suck that up, don't cry. Like, man, I have a severely sprained ankle. He's like, walk it off, So that vulnerability, I think men, Nelly, struggle with a lot. Like, how would you say? Other than just do it, like, are there some tools or some ideas that, like, for any man listening that's maybe struggling with holding a lot in before they reach that breaking point? Like, how would you direct somebody who's struggling with that?
That's such a good point, because men in general get that idea, and you'll see it next time. Go to the park, you have a mom, and as simple as this example is, this is at a greater scale. You were taught this, 5-year-old little girl falls off the bike, the dad or the mom, the guardian, oh, very nurturing. You okay? Oh my God, come here, sit down, don't get on the bike, take some time off. The little boy falls down, just as hurt. No, 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 you're okay. Come on, get back on there. She's doing this to him. And I'm watching this in the park as I'm taking my son when he was 5. And it's just brush it off. So that sends the message to the little boy that really that crying, just exposing that you are hurt is a no-go. It's not a safe place, or it's not safe to show that you are hurt, or that that you can't. It sends the message that no, and the males are supposed to protect the girls. It was my brother's job to protect me, and it just sends that culturally. I think no matter socioeconomic levels, it's just across the board. Men get that theme over and over with society, over and over. And that men, and there was a movie, I can't remember what I was watching, but where men drink their problems away. That's how they resolve their problems. They just go to the bar with their buddies and they drink it away. And I thought, well, that's a negative coping skill. But that's why, Thomas. And so that's why with parents, when I'm doing parenting classes, I make sure that I emphasize that it is very important that we show our boys that it is safe for them to show vulnerability by them allowing them to cry. As simple as that can seem, allowing a little boy to cry is okay. And even men now, they have a really hard time in therapy. They'll just do this, but I always say that if this is a safe place, and go ahead and cry. Crying is a cleansing. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I have 2 boys, and I've found myself kind of on both in both scenarios, or doing the same things, both those things that you just described, where there's times where I'm like, hey, dude, that's not a big deal. Like, I don't understand what you're crying about. Like, keep it moving. And then there's other times where I'm like, damn, I'm sure that hurt. Like, I totally get it. And that's okay that you feel the pain, but it's not okay to stop. And I think that's for parents specifically. There's this balance and this fine line that we're trying to tread and figure out, where, like, I don't want, like, my son, for example, when we first took his training wheels off, he had a lot of fear of the potential of being hurt. And I didn't want to acknowledge that fear because he hadn't even tried. It's not like he tried and he fell off the bike, but he was anticipating the pain of falling off the bike. And so in those moments, I'm like, nah, dude, it's not okay, because nothing has happened. So, like, yeah, you're being fearful for no reason. But I seen a change in his demeanor where he was like, well, you don't understand me, type of thing. Although he didn't vocalize that, that was the feeling I got. So I'm like, okay, now I got to, like, backtrack and backpedal and show him that I care about what he's going through. But then also, how do I push him to, like, give it a shot and expect that you're going to fall? Like, how do you communicate that? And I think that's a struggle for me. But I'm glad you brought that up, because it's, there's I think situationally, both are appropriate, especially I think when raising boys. Like, I think one of the greatest gifts my dad gave me, because he spent 6 to 9 months out of the year, every year for like 20 years in another state working in the studio industry. So every conversation I had with my dad from the age of 5 to 25 was, hey, you're the man of the house. Take care of your brothers, take care of your sisters, take care of your mom. Like, it's on you, And at 5, it didn't make sense. And even 10 and maybe even 12, like, dude, there's not much I can do. But now, as a man and a father myself, I'm like, that was such an incredible gift that my father gave me, of that responsibility. But I'm sure not everybody responds that way. So it's a struggle. What would you say in that situation? Like, if you were going to offer me a little bit of advice with, like, the example I gave with my son, and being fearful of the potential of injury without even trying? Like how would you say somebody could deal with those types of things?
I hear you, because it could be that delicate balance. But Thomas, one of the things I would do is, make sure he has his knee pads on and a helmet and all that. And once that's on, explain that's why this is there, because if you do fall, and I would go into, even just remember, children need to be explained in detail. If you fall, just even teach him, what do you do if you are going to fall? Just a very detailed, simple, be present in the moment, acknowledge he is fearful. But that's why they make knee pads. Think about this. Think about, let's just say his name is Johnny. Johnny, think about why they put a knee pad. Why not make it somewhere else? Because when we fall, that's usually the first thing that would hit the ground. It's your knees, your elbows, your head. And so you are protected. That's why these are here. And just a simple conversation, but still acknowledging that. And continue to push him. As parents, we do that. And that's okay. Yeah. But not to, no, you're going to be fine. Get on the bike. That's,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I want to say for anyone that's listening, and you have a dilemma, let's say whatever dilemma it is just one of the best things you can do for any relationship, and it's like a ointment, and it's validation. If you validate your partner, any relationship, I'm like, as you know, I'm passionate about relationships, because the better quality your relationships are, the better you are. You're happier, you have a great marriage, you have great relationships at work, everything is great, like life is good. It's due to the quality of your relationships. So validating is a key for any conflict resolution. So think of a conflict you might have. A validation comment sounds like this. So let's go back to your son. It's okay to be a little scared, son. That's a comment. Sometimes I get scared. The first time I drove the car, I was scared, but we overcome that. And how we overcome it is by trying. So you acknowledge. Validation is just acknowledging their feelings, and then you suggest whatever in a really, the delivery of it is really important, but you kind of set it up with a validation statement.
Oh my goodness.
It's feel, felt, found.
I was just thinking that, dude. Feel, felt, found. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I understand how you feel. I felt the same way, but here's what I found. That's amazing. And we know it's amazing is, as you were talking about that story and giving advice in that story, Nelly, I was thinking about how many grown adults that, are just maybe getting into a new business that they have very little experience with, or getting in, maybe stepping out of their comfort zone and getting into something new and different. And they have that fear of, what if I butt my knee? What if I or what if my friend says this, or what if this and this happens? And none of these things have even happened yet. Nothing has happened. They're almost making up a lot of scenarios in their head. And, having to have that conversation with them, so how about it in that respect? I'm sure it's mostly the same thing, right?
Well, that's what our brain is designed to do. And I'm sure Nelly can talk a little bit more about that, but our brain is designed to figure out how to survive and protect us from those feelings, those like the chemical reaction that's created in our body of fight or flight and stuff, right? Like our brain's going to take the least path of resistance most of the time. So I think what Alex is asking, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but like, how would you suggest somebody have a breakthrough of that? Because fear is paralyzing for most people. And like, I struggled with that the first year or two, and like trying to figure out how to push past that from a business standpoint, but maybe even relationships. Like maybe, from the first time I approached my now wife, and the unknown of whether or not she was going to be receptive to, my efforts. So yeah, so like, how would you, help people to understand how to push through that little barrier of the paralyzing fear?
First, I just want you to know that we hear fight or flight, and for everyone to know there's actually three, and that's fight, flight, or freeze. There's people that just won't do it. Okay. fight or flight or freeze. And that usually comes with the release of cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. Whether you're at a stop sign and this guy just cut you off and now you're yelling at him every bad word, whether you're fearful of starting a new business, just an awareness of understanding that you have all this cortisol that you're releasing because of the thoughts that you have. And if you could expose your body less to less cortisol, how would you do that? Sometimes I approach things because remember, I'm trying to sell you a different way of thinking because
Mhm.
like you said, the brain is made to think all the what ifs only to protect you, only so that you are ready for that. What if this and what if that? And so with that same energy, I want you to also think, and I make clients think, what if you are successful? So also have a plan for that. And once you think one thought one time, it's easier for your mind to have that same thought again. It's like
Mhm.
creating that neuroplasticity.
Say that one
So
more time. You said it one more time. Can you just say that one?
once you've had one thought one time, it's easier for you to have that thought again. So if my thought, right, I get a lot of messages of people that hate love. I don't know if I can curse, so I can't say what I want to say, but F love, everyone is horrible. There's no dating. I'm not going back out there. Well, perhaps if let's say we've done some work and now he says, well, it sounds like maybe I'm different. So maybe I can find love. That simple thought, maybe I can find love. Once he's thought that, it's easier for him to recreate that thoughts birthed out of that because he's had it. So if he didn't have those thoughts before, now it's easier to recreate those with neuroplasticity. So that's part of having one positive thought, like let's say that your business, or if you're doing business coaching, okay, let's say I get it, you have the negative what is, but I also make them do a list of the what if positive, and that usually helps generate that positive thought that will create more of those.
That's interesting because it's definitely, and as you say that, it's especially when people start speaking out loud too. And I think with that, like affirmations, it's hard to think something negative and say something positive at the same time. Like it's almost like, it's really difficult to think negatively, but when you're speaking positively, it's those thoughts can't live in the same space. Like those, a negative and a positive really can't live in the same space. So that's amazing. I love, man.
People that have an anxiety attacks, it's the byproduct of their thoughts. So what happens, where I seen as just working with different clients, is that some people aren't even aware of what they're thinking. So this is the example that I use with clients. What are you thinking right now? Oh, nothing. No. Oh, you're thinking something. The average person has about 50,000 thoughts a day. So what are you thinking? And I make them have a CBT technique, is to write down all your thoughts. I had one guy, he wrote one thought for that whole day. I know you have more. So part of them is to just slow down. And what am I thinking right now? Oh, I'm thinking that today's going to be a beep day, is going to be messed up. And so already you wake up and your first thought is a negative thought. How are you going to have a positive day if already you're thinking negative? So slowing down enough. So the example that I give is your TSA. You know how TSA, nothing gets through TSA without them looking. There's an X-ray machine. You're not getting more than 4 ounces, and that my lotion was thrown away. So that's how I want you to do with your thoughts. No negative thoughts here. What is this thought you had? I'm never going to get married. No, throw that one away. And really, at the end of your day, I want you to literally have all these thoughts. We're going to scratch that one, throw that one away. That one won't serve you. And really slow down enough for you to identify, what am I thinking? There's some people that just don't even have the self-awareness to know, okay, what am I thinking right now at this moment? Anytime you're in this, have you ever had those blah moments where I just feel horrible? It could be because you could be tired. There's biological reasons why we get tired or fuzzy. We're just like babies. We get cranky too. But the other one, and the most common, is there's a negative thought in there. It's in there somewhere. It's stuck. You got to get it out.
Mm. Think about what you're thinking about.
Yeah. The actual term is metacognition, is thinking about what you're thinking. Yeah.
Wow. Isn't it true too, Nelly, that like those negative, you mentioned obviously that negative thoughts don't serve you. And I think most people understand that. But I don't think people understand like how exactly they that one negative thought can kind of domino or create that domino effect. Because isn't it true, like you have a negative thought like before you get out of bed, man, today sucks, I'm tired, and like literally the universe, or like I'm a Christian, so I say God, but like the world will prove to you why that thought, it'll validate itself, right? Like you have that thought, today's gonna be a horrible day, and then you jump out of bed and you step on a thumbtack, and then like that's like validation, right? And then you go to like you use the restroom or whatever your routine is, and there's no toilet paper on the roll, and then you're out of toothpaste, and then like you like, isn't it true that like you will find and search out to validate your own thoughts?
Yeah, there's a term called scotoma, and that means that whatever you want to see will be there, and whatever you don't want to see there will never be there.
Oh.
So, you will never, if you don't believe you're going to ever find love, you're never going to see it. And it could be right here. You could have someone telling you they love you. And when I do relationship coaching, that's what I see sometimes, that you have people that are unable to receive love because they don't see it. They have that core belief, that whatever that core belief or that thought that they woke up that day with, or let's say that, like Thomas, you just said, you wake up and you have that, oh, today's going to be a messed up day. That literally, that thought then becomes a seed and it germinates. It's now you have a bunch of things that have really is the byproduct of that seed. So if someone's going on a date, this is going to be just like any other date, and they already have that negative energy, it's going to be negative. Yes, it is. You just called it. It will be. Mm-hmm.
So you said the word was scotoma?
Scotoma. It's like you don't see what's there, and what you can't see won't be there. It's that just a term where it's like you won't, whatever you're looking for, it's like, now I want to get a Tesla. So now I see a Tesla and it seems like I see it everywhere. But before I saw one, I never even seen it. So it also prevents you. It's like it blinds you from seeing it. It's like you weren't aware of it. It's like a certain level of awareness.
Well, I'm fascinated because you use the example of love, right? And so what is it that people, so you said like love could be right in front of you, but if you don't think you're ever going to find it, you won't see it. But there's people that think they want love. And I say think because if it's something that you want, how do you not see it when it's in front of you? Because your thought is you're never going to find it, but it's something you want. So where is that disconnect? Like how does that happen? How is there that confusion or lack of clarity if it's something that you really want, right? Like, because there's people out there that's all they want is love, but then there's that little seed of, I don't know if I'll ever find it, and so it's in front of them and you're saying they can't see it, but they want it. So like, when do you stop the attraction? At what point does that happen? And I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
yes. Well, the reason why there's a disconnect is because we have to go back to the origins of this person. And most of the time where I see that is because they were raised by a disorganized parent. So if you were raised in one of those homes where it's like one moment you're being loved, everything's good, I love you, and then maybe the next week you were emotionally neglected. So what I have found and just learned is that sometimes there's like they were not secure growing up. People that have really secure attachments to their guardians, their parents, people they were raised by, tend to always attract really healthy relationships and keep them and be married and be fruitful. But it is the ones that have really the parenting styles, however they were raised, they seem to attract whatever they were raised in. So if they were raised by someone that was neglectful, they'll attract that, or by someone that was very emotionally distant, they'll attract that. So that's the reason why. And so one of the things that I do is I present them with the evidence. Well, let's talk a little bit of, and I present the evidence of what they were raised in, and perhaps this is unconsciously they are recreating that as an adult because it's familiar territory.
Oh yeah, I was just about to, yeah, because it's what they're used to, right? And they, that's interesting. Shoot, now I'm asking a little light question too. So when it comes to like men and so men and women and guys not noticing, half of probably like 80 to 90% of what a woman's doing, to
The signs.
like the signs, right? So what are some of those signs, right? So say somebody is looking for love and actively looking for it, but they just don't necessarily know what to look for. And so what about guys up, what should a guy look for? So if a woman's presenting herself to really like a gentleman or want to be involved with the guy, what are some of the things that a guy should look for, that a woman may be doing to try to attract him? I think women are a lot more, maybe a little more forward now. I don't know if it's more forward nowadays or what. I think that's just my fiance. She was like, I want you. I'm like, okay. She was basically like that. She's like, I like you, like pretty much, but what are some things that are maybe the little bit more subtle ways that guys really don't pick up on when it comes to ladies kind of, shooting their shot, so to speak? What are some of those like subtle things women do?
Episode 7, it's funny because I have to put in this plug. Episode 7 of Ask Nelly is why are men expected to make that first move? And in actuality, women, and I said this in the show, women take their shot a lot, but men are like, like, we're looking at you. I think one of the major it's a compliment. They're going to compliment you. Wow, that is just simple. Women are not going to be, as your fiance, she was more forward and assertive, and we would want that, but some women are just not like that. They'll just say, wow, that's a really nice sweater, it looks good on you. Just maybe even less than that. You did great today. And you have to just be, I'm not saying that every woman that says that is hitting on you, but just pay attention. If she's saying that because she's trying to throw you like a hint and you're not picking up on it.
I'm trying to hook.
Trying to put it out there.
Yeah, my wife was not that way, dude. She's not a complimenter. She's not like, I knew she wanted me though, dude. Like
she wanted you, huh?
I knew it. Well, yeah, no, I think that feeling was mutual. So I'm not trying to, put it all on her. But like, I knew she couldn't. If I attempted, although I mentioned like that fear was still there because I think most people have a fear of rejection. So that was underlying there. But I was pretty confident that like, you know what I mean? If I took 2 steps forward, she'd meet me halfway, and that's what happened. But yeah, but she's not that way. Even to this day, she still doesn't. He doesn't throw a lot of compliments out. Like so 5 love languages, Nelly. I'm assuming you're familiar with. My wife.
I am.
So check this out. And people are probably going to look at me now. I'm being vulnerable, guys. People are probably going to look at me like this dude's a girly man, and it's just been with it's been my finding and pretty consistent that most men are kind of have the same love language. So my top 2 is words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation is most
and physical touch. Yep, words of affirmation and physical touch. So I need to be touched and complimented and stuff. And my wife's love language is acts of service and quality time. So I know for sure acts of service. I'm pretty sure quality time. Like there was like it was 1% off when we took the test between 2 and 3. So I hope I get that right.
Yeah, I gotta retake it.
But isn't it true, Nelly, that we communicate our love of other people in our own language, and most people don't know how to communicate that to the other. So my wife knows that I love her if I fold the laundry and take out the trash without her asking. Whereas if she makes me dinner, that's her way of telling me she loves me or appreciates me, but that it doesn't show me. So
Well,
there's
it doesn't convey. It's a different language. She's speaking French and you only speak Spanish. You know, it's the language is different.
Correct.
And I explain that to couples that you guys love each other very much. I always I start with a positive regard. There's a lot of love here, but you guys are speaking two different languages, and I break it down like that. So your wife making you lunch, she makes you dinner, she washes all your laundry, she does everything for you, keeps the house clean. To you, you're like, I could care less. I need you to not just compliment me, but validate. Validation is really what words of affirmation is. So men receive love by respect. Respect is in that under the words of affirmation, under validation. So it is very important that a wife, and I had a wife tell me this in session in front of her husband, I'm not doing all that. I'm not, if he needs to get validated every day, I'm not doing all that. I said, what you're saying is that you are unwilling to give him what he needs in this relationship. And I want to make that very clear, that you are unwilling. It's not that you can't. Unwilling, you're wasting my time. You know, at that point, I'm working with another couple that it says, the attitude is, yes, I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to repair, restore, and get this marriage back and going. But if that's why it's very important that most men have that words of affirmation as their love language.
Yeah, obviously with that couple that you just used the example, and she said, "I'm not doing that if I have to do that all day." That unwillingness that you mentioned, right? But like the way she said it was very like certain and like it didn't matter. Do you think, Nelly, that she's one of those women that was a shot taker, so to speak? And I guess what I'm trying to ask is, there's women that are very upfront and will let you know and kind of open, maybe even some would call aggressive. And do you think, like for her, if she was one of those types of women, hearing that her husband needs words of affirmation or that validation, do you think maybe she looked at him like, you're weak, right? And that's not what she really wanted in a man. And does that make sense? Like, do you think, because I think sometimes women are like, they want a man, but then they're aggressive. And usually most of the men that respond to that aggressiveness tend to be a little passive and, for a lack of better words, weaker. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, that is safe to say, because, you know, there's usually one in the relationship that's maybe more assertive, the other one's maybe passive. There's 3 types of communication, you know, passive, aggressive, and aggressive, and then assertive, which is in the middle. But what happens is that no matter if the woman is aggressive or not, what I've seen is that they have to, it's the attitude of, are you willing and open to doing whatever is needed to get this marriage back? At this point, we're not, you know, if someone is in the dating stages, this is where they would see what type of man I want to be with. But at this point, they were already married, they had kids. Like, this is not the time to determine, you know, if you want to be with this man. This is, are you willing to do what needs to be done to get this marriage back up?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that brings me to another point, and not to toot my own horn, but there's a self-awareness, I guess, that I've had. And over the years, it's happened multiple times where I'll ask my wife, where I start to feel maybe neglected or whatever the word would be, but where I maybe questioned whether or not she loved me. And this is how we discovered the 5 love languages like 10 years ago. Because there was a point, at that point we had been together maybe 6 or 7 years. And I asked her, like, do you even love me? And she said, what, like, how could you even ask me that? Don't I wash your clothes? Don't I make you lunch? Don't I do this? And I'm like, yeah, but I can do that stuff myself. So that's not what's telling me. And so she, I mean, she's an incredible woman. She said, well, what do you need from me? And I basically told her, like, I need you to let me know that I look good, that, like, you know, what I'm wearing, like, you know, I'm rocking it. Like, I need you to rub my shoulders. I need you to, you know, do those things. And so there was a self-awareness before I even discovered the love language. And then she told me, well, you know what, like, I was wondering the same thing. So I appreciate you asking me. And we had this open dialogue. So how important is communication? I think most people listening know, but hopefully you can, you know, maybe elaborate a little on that and how to open it up and the best ways to receive it. I guess I think that's the biggest key to communication is believing that whoever you're talking to is going to be open to receiving it without creating a rift.
Right. Along those lines is just like I said, learning your love language and for having a partner that is willing to do that. So words of affirmation for you, it's not that, you know, oh, that sure looks good on you, honey, but hey, babe, you know, thanks for doing what you have done so much for this family to keep us protected, to make sure that you are, you know, the king, and you have really sheltered us from a lot. And that's what a man does. And so it's not just to clarify, you know, words of affirmation is just saying what you do for that family.
Right.
What does that man do for you? And just being authentic. If you're being fake, oh, I love your shirt, you look great, you know, that's not, then you're going to know that it's not authentic. But if
Right.
you can't really identify something awesome that your spouse is doing, like, you have to question the whole relationship then, because there is something he's doing. He's sacrificed a lot for this family. There's a lot of husbands that work a lot to take care of the family. And although the wife is doing it too, there's a certain level of stress that goes over a man. I think that, you know, especially where he feels like he's got to kind of keep the whole family safe and together. He's the glue, you know. And a lot of women will say, well, no, I'm the glue, because I've had women say that. And so to that, I say it's really about what we need to get this relationship back together. And for a man, it's respect, words of affirmation, validation, but they have to be authentic.
Correct.
And really having a conversation. So I've said this to different couples at different times. Before someone cheats in a relationship, there was some need that wasn't being met. And I know that some people will be like, no, it's not my fault they cheated. You know, I'll be the first one to tell you that my ex-husband cheated on me, but I had to step back and really be mature and say, maybe there was something I could learn from this so it doesn't happen again. You know, what was he not getting at home? And so, like I said, I've had a lot. No, he didn't. Right. It didn't give him an excuse to go cheat. All I'm saying is that for me, I wanted that higher level of awareness that maybe, you know, and I want you to know that usually before someone cheats in a relationship, there is something missing. And for you to just sit down with your partner and have that authentic conversation that says, babe, you know, I love you. We've been together 10 years, but I feel like something is missing. Do you feel the same way?
No. See, and I think people avoid that conversation, Nelly, and maybe you well, because you don't know if how the other person is going to listen to it, right? Like, I think most people try to avoid conflict. Yeah, like, how are they going to receive it? And I think most couples aren't willing to have those quote unquote uncomfortable conversations that can really bring strength to the relationship. And I read an article, Nelly, I don't know if you're probably familiar with, but I read something that it was along the lines like, when men cheat, like 90+% of the time, they actually still love their partner, but what was missing is, like, there was a physical void, right? So usually it was physical, whereas when a woman cheats, 90% of the time they're no longer in love with their spouse because there was an emotional void and they completely disconnected.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so many different studies, but I posted on Facebook maybe like a year ago about because this person that the man cheats with is not better than the wife, not better looking, not in a better financial. It's just like they're getting something
Physical.
from this other person. So let's say, and I'm just going to use you, Thomas, just because I feel safe that I can use you as an example.
Sure.
But let's say you need words of affirmation and you haven't been told, hey, Tiger, you're looking good in that shirt, and you haven't. And then now there's a new office secretary. She's your secretary. And wow, you look so just dapper today. And she's giving you compliments. She tells you what an awesome supervisor you are. And now she's giving you all your love language, right? And your wife hasn't given you any love language, but she's not speaking those words to you. And now you have this, secretary doing it. No matter what, it's like she's feeding something in you. So that's why it's important to know that, and I will tell you that my ex-husbands, and I'm very honest and I'm very transparent about my failed marriage so that someone else can say theirs. I didn't speak his love language. And we were married for 12 years, been together 14 years. But I had no idea. I wasn't there because we both had a high school diploma and we were two young kids, And so I didn't give him the words of affirmation that he needed. So it just left him vulnerable. It did, to some other lady saying, wow, you're so handsome. Have you been working out? Wow, you're this. I love your haircut, and just things that I should have been doing. But I wasn't even aware that he needed that,
Look, you rubbing your face. You don't know your wife's love language, huh? You don't know Tina's love language, or do you?
Bro.
You don't, huh?
No, because we haven't taken that test together. We haven't taken that test together.
You guys better do.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Yeah, it opened up a lot for my wife and I. So I appreciate you sharing that, Nelly.
Yeah, that was big time. So as you were saying, or when the conversation started on love languages, I was like, oh yeah, we gotta take that test to do it together.
Yeah, we have 2 copies of the books, bro, and we both read them from time to time. There's an app that remind me. It's called Love Nudge or something like that. But it'll like send me a notification, like reminder to do an active service, for my wife and stuff. And it might sound funny to some people listening to this, like, oh, you need an app to remind you, but at least I'm willing to do that, sucker.
There's 5 love. I have up there on my desk, I have 5 love languages of children.
Yeah, that's the next one that we needed to get. We're trying to figure out our children because they're both polar opposites. So like my oldest son is a thinker. He's very forward thinking, and the what ifs usually tend to go towards how do I protect myself and keep myself from injury, where my younger one's like, Dad, can I climb to the 3rd story and jump off the 3rd story and jump off the roof?
Yeah, that's
it's funny.
I'm like your youngest. I'm like, well, try this,
Yeah.
So that's why it's very important to have these conversations. Another just key thing, I want to say this because it's really important. They have this world-renowned marriage therapist. Like, you couldn't even get an appointment with her. She was like, I don't know, a large amount of money per hour. And she's on this radio station. And as part of my school, we were listening to this. And someone said, if your marriage is falling apart and you want to get it back together, what is one thing that we could do right now that will fix, repair? What is one thing? If you just could give us one thing right here, right now. And she said, okay, I have one thing for you. And the whole room was like quiet. You could hear a pin drop in there. And she said, 10 minutes a day with rules. You can't have sex. You can't talk about the plumber. You can't talk about the kids. You can't talk about the gardener. You cannot talk about the house, what it needs, what you're planning to go to, the vacation, what you're going to do this weekend. It has to be a 10-minute conversation daily about you two. How are we? Like a temperature check. How are we? You good? Are you feeling okay? Is there anything I could do to make you feel more loved? Just a 10-minute conversation. We think it's so hard to do. Like, people don't have 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And she said that the first couple, when she told them this assignment, they sat there in complete silence. Why? Because remember, you can't talk about the kids. You can't talk about, the roof needing to get redone. You can't talk about, what you're going to eat for dinner. It has to be a, how are we? How are we? This relationship, me and you, face to face. And so 10 minutes a day should be something, Alex, that you do for the rest of your relationship with you and her, that you sit those 10 minutes, set the timer, and you just there. Even if you sit there in that quiet space where you're looking at each other and you are just there, but be present in that moment with her and be there. It's really powerful.
How important is it, Nelly, in those conversations to not get offended or take things personally? And what's the proper way? And I think I know the answer to this, but what's the proper way if you're going to have this exercise to kind of set your mind or to prepare for whatever the response to those questions are? Because I think people tend to avoid asking questions because they don't want to hear the response.
Well, those are you should have a how to resolve conflict blueprint. How do you resolve conflict? There are certain rules when you resolve conflict in any couples. When they come to me, number one is there's no yelling, there's no screaming, no name calling, and just have certain rules when it comes to conflict resolution. If couples can resolve conflict in a healthy way, that couple, studies show that they'll be married 50 years because they have conflict resolution skills. No yelling, no screaming, no name calling. And being sarcastic, as fun as it is, sometimes being sarcastic, it doesn't serve the relationship. Right. So think of like a marriage, so think of, like, for example, me, I'm Nelly, right? And my boyfriend's name is Eric. So I tell him all the time, when we have a disagreement, if there's Nelly, Eric, and then the relationship, if there's a point next to Nelly, that means that the relationship is losing. If there's a point next to Eric's name, then the relationship is still losing. We want Nelly 0, Eric 0, and the relationship 1. We want the relationship to win. So how can you responding and getting loud and crazy and won't make me feel safe to share how I'm truly feeling and say that? You Right. get so reactive and you get so upset when I really want to repair and tell you how I'm feeling, but you don't make me feel like it's safe to do so.
Right. That's
So
powerful.
they understand that.
Yeah. I'm reflecting a lot on my relationship, and I don't know what point this happened, but my wife and I, and people don't believe me, after we're going on 17 years together, and we just celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary this last Sunday, so 2 days ago. And when people ask me, like, hey, do you guys ever fight, or like, how do you resolve stuff? I'm like, we've never had like a full-blown scream at the top of your lungs argument. And usually, I don't remember at what point we came to this understanding, but I said, hey, listen, if I need a second, I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk away. I just ask that you give me a couple minutes. I'll be back so that we can, like, let me gather my thoughts, because I tend to be spiteful. So I understood that about myself. And I said, I don't want to like, please let me go and break just for a couple minutes, and I'll come back and we can figure this out, because I do not want to say something that I can't take back. And my wife was accepting to that. And she, even to this day, once we start to feel that little bit of attention, I'm like, I'll be back. And she's like, okay, I'll be here. And so it's worked really well for us. The other thing I asked her to do is, if we are in a public setting and there's a disagreement or something that she's not, really feeling, and I don't know if this was right to do, but I asked her to not address that in a public setting.
Oh, that's a great strategy.
Yeah, I didn't want to feel like disrespected. Like, hey, and on top of that, like, nobody needs to know, our business. As far as, like, I don't go outside of my relationship to talk about my wife and our issues. Like, I just don't do that. If I have an issue, I'm going to talk to her about it. Now, will I listen to somebody's story and try to get, some hints and nuggets? Absolutely. But I'm not going to go and vent to friends about my wife's shortcomings or whatever I think are her shortcomings, because I don't need them to validate, my negative feelings, because that just puts a void in relationships. So for me, I think that was, those are a couple of things that
So
me.
for your listeners, and any couples, that's really key, is just to be able to, before this argument comes up, while everything is happy, everything is good, say, hey babe, let's talk about when an argument does. And so when we are in the middle of that, let's have some conflict resolution rules. It's called fighting fair. There is no name calling. You're being a lazy ass. You're always this. You're never this. No, those again, there's a point next to your name, but not to the relationship. You want to make sure that there are certain things that's, if you talk about them before, you will kind of adhere to them during an argument. And that one's a great one, not in a public place and not via text. You would be surprised how many people want to fight have text wars. Do not have these conversations via text. Texting is for, hey, do you need me to get milk? Or can you, remember, I got to talk to you about this. Not to have meaningful conversations or topics that warrant a sit down conversation.
Right. I love that you said the point. I love that you said the point thing, because I don't think I've ever thought about that. But usually when issues start to get a little bit bigger in any other relationship other than with my wife, it's usually because I'm trying to score points for myself. Like, like I'm trying to win, and I love that you painted that picture. So I hope you listeners in relationships caught that, or take that into a relationship that you're having. That was powerful.
It's like, it's either you win, it's either, either you're trying to be right, in your mind, so you're trying to be right, or let the relationship win. And I think that could be for friends, and it could be for friends, it could be with coworkers, it could be with it could be in social settings and all those things. A lot of folks, and I've just seen, I don't know how many times I've seen somebody literally double down on their point because they're so focused on being right, and literally, the relationship has lost. Like the relationship has lost. It's negative points. It's negative points. You have to do so much to rebuild, to regain ground, even to get back to a certain comfort level.
Well, sometimes, bro, that it's irreparable too. I think I've ruined relationships because I'm spiteful and I'm naturally argumentative. So like, if I believe that I'm right, it doesn't matter what you say. You can hit me with facts, but I'm like, I don't care. That's wrong. So I've had to do a lot of. Go ahead, Nelly.
I want to say that Thomas, you said something that was so powerful that I use with couples, and because we want to be able to really provide value, and that's what I wanted your listeners to get, is remember the word ETO, emotional timeout. This is an important strategy, whether you're talking to your kids, whether you're talking to your spouse. It is okay, and sometimes you have to talk to your spouse before, and your kids, where you're going to say, you know what, I need an emotional timeout. My 16-year-old has now learned, Mom, I need an emotional timeout. And guess what? I'm not going to say, no, you're going to talk about this right now because I want to. And trust me, as a mom, he'll pull the ETO card when I want to talk about grades and everything else. No, you know me, I'm not being that we're a little crazy. No, we're going to talk about this right. And then same thing with women. Sometimes, the guy wants to walk away. No, you're not going anywhere right now. We're going to talk about it right now. Okay. I'm telling you, it's not beneficial. You need an ETO. But before the argument happens, have some of these before. Hey, babe, just let you know, if I ever say I need an ETO of here's the key. just give me a time when you're going to come back. For example, if you're in the middle of a heated argument, babe, I need an ETO right now. Okay. When are we going to resume this? Let's resume. Let's say it's 2:00. You know what? I'm going to go work out and, get something to eat and I'll be back. Let's talk tonight at 7:30. Okay. So don't leave it as well, I don't know when I want to talk about it, because then that's going to make the other part like, this is not important to you.
Right.
So allow your partner to have an ETO. And I'm a woman and sometimes we get crazy. No, we're going to talk about it right now, and we both need it. Give me some time. Let me gather my thoughts. Let me take a deep breath, and it's okay. Do you have to leave the house? Not necessarily. You can go to the next room. You can, if you have to go, I say it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Emotions are on like level 1,000, and it's tough to gauge, and everything's so reactive. Everybody's just reacting. They're not really thinking of they're not really thinking through what they're saying. And man, that's amazing, man. Shoot, this is
well, I had such an appreciation for my relationship, and it's such an understanding of myself naturally that I will say things deliberately to hurt your feelings. And I just respected my wife so much that I never wanted to do that, which is why I had that conversation. So I think it's important to know, like what Nelly mentioned, right? Great points, and know what it is that you need and communicate that with the person that you love. And, you guys will ultimately both benefit from it.
Well, shoot, man, this was an amazing conversation, man. We touched on some stuff. I'm out here, be real, John. I'm taking these mental notes. I'm literally going to go back and watch this. I'm going to go back and watch this a few times, listen to it a few times, just because there's so many nuggets, man. So much value was placed, man. Thank you, Nelly. Really appreciate bringing that value.
Nelly, where can whoever's going to be listening, where can they find you on Instagram? How could they, get in touch with you if they needed some additional questions answered, if you're open to that?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, my handle is ask _Nelly NELLY. I use Instagram more than anything. I am on Facebook as well under Nelly Johnson. I just seem to prefer Instagram more than Facebook at the moment, but I answer questions in both.
Beautiful. Awesome. And learning too. So what's coming up? So we heard episode 7, right? So there's gonna be a little more details on episode 7 about the men and the women communication. So talk a little bit about your new show coming up. Ask Nelly to tell people about it.
Yeah, when's that air?
Thank you. Millennium Fair Network reached out, and I just want to say that I always wanted to have my own show, and I wanted a relationship show. And the name Ask Nelly was birthed out of just different people would have different questions, and they knew what I was going to school for at the time, and different friends would be like, Ask Nelly. I don't know, Ask Nelly. So that's kind of where I came up with Ask Nelly. So the network approached me and said, we want to do a relationship show, and we want to call it Ask Nelly. And I just felt like it was like law of attraction that had worked, because I had spoken that into existence. And we've done eight shows, and that's complete like a season, and we will resume in about a month. But it's about relationships. We have talked about every single episode is framed around a topic, whether it's should women make the first move? The other one is, how long should you wait after a breakup before you start dating someone new? I'm going to give you a sneak peek here, but episode 8 was, should you ask for STD test results before you sleep with someone new? They're just very episodes that are really relevant to what we are going through right now.
Man, that is amazing. I cannot
I'm
wait.
Excited. I'm excited to tap into some of those. Yeah.
That's amazing.
You know, Nelly, I just personally want to thank you because I've gained a lot from this, and some of it was validation, and so I appreciate you kind of, you know, sharing that and being, you know, honest and upfront, because it helped, you know, confirm for me that I've done some things right, but there's also some things that I can work on. And so I thoroughly you know, enjoyed our conversation, but I wholeheartedly appreciate you. And there's no wonder why you're experiencing the success, and you know, that you're experiencing, and how, you know, these opportunities are going to continue to present themselves for you, because your want to serve and your love for people. If you guys didn't catch that, I caught that, really came through with how upfront and open you were with sharing your years and years of experience, essentially free of charge. And I think if, you know, people listen to this from the beginning to the end, they're going to get a ton of value, and not just strengthening their relationships with their spouse or partner, but all relationships. We're relational creatures, folks. That's
Yeah.
what we do. It's human nature. And so these things can be, like Alex mentioned, they applied to any type of relationship that you're looking to grow and nurture. So I appreciate all that you shared with us.
Thank
Man.
you. I like I said, you guys, I love you guys. Let me know anytime. I'm here. I really, Thomas, I also share. I am also a believer, and I believe that when God has allowed you to get a certain type of, I just feel like with me and my education and experience, it's supposed to be to bless others and help others, not so I can get it. For me, it's not a financial thing. It's just really when you get so many messages like thank you. There's so many things that I've answered and free. I do it for free because for me it's building my riches in heaven. That's how I see it.
Mm,
Beautiful.
that's what I'm talking about.
Beautiful soul, beautiful spirit, beautiful person. Yeah, I loved it. And, you know, I know that everybody that listens in is going to get a ton of value. And, you know, God is great, and he's
Thank
doing
you.
great.
Amen.
He's working great, you know, miracles through you. And I know this is going to bless a ton of people. So hopefully next time we can do this in person. I know that was our goal, and we had to do Zoom, but I think it worked out pretty well. Yeah, you did a great job, brother, setting it up. So
It was
Yes.
real good, man. So want to appreciate everybody for tapping in. Nelly, thank you for taking the time out and having a great chat with us. And everybody that was watching, I want to thank you guys for for tapping in with us. And we're gonna have amazing content here. We want to appreciate you for your time. Please subscribe, like, comment, share. This one is huge share moments in this conversation.
yeah, go and follow Nelly too, and
Yeah.
show some support and love over there as well, guys.
Absolutely, man. So thank you. Want to appreciate it. So no pressure, no diamonds. Let's get it.